All right, hi, I think we're on. Let's see. Okay, so does everybody in the chat need to hit play on the? Okay, great, we are on. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here, Justin, and for everybody else who is going to be watching the recording. This is our Accio Books 201 workshop, and so the purpose of this workshop is just to talk about ways that we can incorporate literary activism in our Accio Books campaign and kind of take it beyond just the book collection drive. So we're going to talk about examples of campaigns that you can do or ways that you can get involved beyond just collecting books.
Whoa.
So if you're here already, you probably already know what Accio Books is, but just to go over our goals this year. Accio Books is our yearly book drive. We've been doing this for several years now. We've donated thousands of books all over different locations around the world where our chapters are located. So we've collected over 200,000 books since then. And this year, our goal is 60,000 books total. The chapters goal specifically is about 50,000. And so our chapters really are the strength of this campaign, and we're definitely counting on our chapters to lead the way throughout this process. The campaign started April 2nd and is gonna run until June 2nd. So that's our Accio Books. If you have more questions about Accio Books, there are lots of resources for you on the chapter resources page that can explain more about the campaign. Total so far, we've raised about 9,000 books, so we're doing pretty well, and we definitely want to continue that. So like I said, this workshop, we had our first workshop, which was Accio Books 101, just covering the basics of the campaign and how to run a book collection drive. The book collection drive is the basic cornerstone of Accio Books. If you weren't able to attend that workshop and you still have questions about how to run a book drive, there's plenty of information on the chapter resources, or you can email training@thehpalliance.org, and we can help you walk through that with you, walk through what we went over in the first workshop. So in this workshop, we're going to share more details about what you can do to incorporate activism into the campaign, just how to take it beyond the book drive and try to do more to support literacy and social change in your community. We do have a staff person in the chat right now who's there to answer your questions and to help you, help you with any resources we need to post. So if you have any specific questions, thoughts, ideas, put them in the chat. We'd love to talk to them through you. We can talk through it in the workshop itself. Or you can always, like I said, email training@thehpalliance.org, and we can try to go over these issues with you. So first of all, the big question that we want to answer is, what is literary activism? Literary activism is just going to be taking action to support literacy and greater access to books. So it's incorporating, social justice and social change into, the actions you take, so that everybody can have books and we can talk about important issues regarding literacy and book access. So there are different types of literary activism, and we're going to outline some of these. We're going to outline some of these things in this workshop today. So, we've got ideas about how you can volunteer, how you can fundraise, how you can support access to books in libraries, or how you can learn about other social justice issues through books. Okay, so you might be wondering how you start something like this. So let's say, you might want to volunteer with a local literacy organization. I lived in New Orleans for the past 3 years before moving back to Mississippi, and adult literacy is a big issue there. And so there are lots of adult literacy organizations that need volunteers to come help and tutor. And so sometimes, those resources might exist in your community, but you don't know about them. So if you don't know what places you can volunteer, ask first. You can get in touch with, schools and libraries around you. Ask if they need help. Ask if they know of other organizations that need help. Libraries are great resources to just figure out what's going on in the community because they're usually in touch with all this kind of information. If you don't, if you ask around and you're still not finding the information that you need, Google or Facebook are really great ways to just find these different resources. You can type in literary or literacy in your town and you'd be surprised at what you find. So there are all kinds of organizations that do exist. You just have to find them. So ask schools, ask librarians, ask community organizations, ask people who might need your help. And then if you still can't find what you're looking for, try Google and Facebook and see if you can find one of these organizations in your community. So one of the ideas that we have about volunteering that you could do is to create a little free library for your town. Little free libraries are take a book, leave a book, little boxes that sort of like sit on a post, and you can put them out in yards, you can put them out at a school, out at a church, out at a place in the community, and they just are free and open to the public. Anybody who comes in can pick up a book, anybody can leave books to put in the library, and so it's just a way to make books free and accessible to the public. The town that I live in Mississippi recently built like 14 little free libraries in our town, so that's really exciting. These things are kind of picking up. When I was living in New Orleans, a lot of people had them in their yards, so these are kind of all over the place, and it's a kind of easy, fun way to make books accessible to people in your community. A lot of people also like decorate their little free libraries, so it can also be considered a community art project, so they're just really fun. Another thing that we thought of as far as volunteering is to consider reading as a public service. So when you're reading as a public service, would be your chapter members can volunteer to read for volunteer to read for different community groups, such as maybe one day you partner with the local library to read during story time for the kids, or maybe there is an adult literacy program and you go in and you help sit with somebody who's learning to read as an adult and you help them read. There are also radio reading services that are pretty interesting. Radio reading is a service that a lot of public radio stations run for blind or print impaired individuals, and they read magazines and newspapers and record them and then give them to these like blind and print impaired individuals who wouldn't be able to access these reading materials on their own. So if there's a radio reading service in your community, that might be something you could look into. Some animal shelters allow people to come in and read to the animals as a way to keep them calm. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can just do something simple as reading and then use that to help serve others. Tutoring is also a great way to use the skill. There might be schools, after-school care programs, community programs for kids where they need tutors to come in and help with after-school reading or after-school homework, and these are great volunteer opportunities for your chapter. Okay, the last one I'm going to talk about is fundraising, and then I'm going to throw it over to Chelsea, who is going to follow up through the rest of the presentation. Lots of literacy organizations need funding to survive, and so your chapter can help these organizations through fundraising. For community organizations that are trying to provide a lot of services, like maybe an after-school program where they're, have the kids coming in and are providing homework help, that costs a lot of money and resources are hard to come by. So if you think your chapter could successfully fundraise, this is definitely something to look into. One thing that you could do is, host a bake sale and give all the funds that you raise from that to whatever organization in your community that you selected. We also have one of our chapters has done a raffle before where they talk to local businesses about getting together a raffle prize, and then they tabled out at their university for 2 weeks so that people could see the table, and managed to collect a lot of donations that way by sitting in a high traffic area where lots of people were passing. So at the end of the raffle, they drew for the prize and then had a Harry Potter movie night to celebrate. So that's definitely another way that you can think about to support literacy organizations in your community, is through fundraising. All right, so now I'm going to throw it over to Chelsea, who is going to finish out the rest of this presentation. So Chelsea, get it.
Yep. All right. Hey guys. So another way that you guys can get involved is by supporting access to books, particularly looking at banned books or challenged books. A lot of communities and a lot of schools are actually still having issues with challenging books that they don't think are necessarily appropriate. For example, a few days ago in Maine, the book I Am Jazz, which has a transgender protagonist, is being challenged because a teacher decided to read it to her elementary school kids, and some parents were very upset with that. So there's just like an example that just happened within the week. So this is definitely still something that happens. So these tactics can include maybe contacting the principal or the school board. If you look at the National Coalition Action Censorship website, they have a book, they have a censorship toolkit, which basically goes down exactly how you can set up this type of protest or campaign. And the major issue specifically is that data shows that books feature people of color or LGBT individuals are more likely to be challenged than books featuring white or heterosexual protagonists. So it's still important that we're fighting book censorship. So this is just another example of ways that you can get involved, and even looking at books that maybe were banned previously in your community. If there's no banned books right now, it's also another way you can sort of look at the history of your community and how it's evolved. Another way that we can get involved is supporting access to books, and one way you can do this is through the American Library Association. They're a fantastic resource. Sorry for you guys who aren't living in the US, but if you guys Google, I'm sure you can find the national equivalent for the ALA. They have a huge calendar which is full of all the different events going on throughout the year and different like celebration days. For example, one coming up on the 30th is Children's Book Day. And what you could do is you could volunteer to host a children's story time, and you could read to kids at a local library. You could also host a special outreach event to focus specifically on collecting children's books, and then you could in turn donate those books. But they have things going on throughout the year, so it's a really great resource to just find different things. They also have like photo campaigns. They do this thing called Snapshot, where you take pictures of your local library and celebrating it. There's just a few different options there, and it's a good resource. So one major thing coming up on May 4th and 5th is the ALA's National Legislative Day. I'm actually going to be able to go there, and I'm so excited. And basically, this is a national day, a lobby day, where people can go and tell their congressmen why libraries are really important to them, because unfortunately, a lot of libraries are facing budget cuts. And it's just important that we tell our elected officials that we really care about our libraries, and we want to make sure that they stay in our communities. Heather's going to be sending out some information soon about different ways that you can contribute to the National Legislative Day. But one thing that you can definitely do is contact your local officials about issues related to schools or library funding or even censorship. If you are looking for resources on how to sort of create something like that, the ALA has a great list of resources called the Advocacy University, which really covers anything you could ever possibly ask for. And one thing that's really important to note, because we are a nonprofit organization, the Harry Potter Alliance, is you have to sort of be careful about how you frame your advocacy asks. Basically, what you need to do is take a stance on the issue. You have to say that you're interested in supporting libraries and not that you're interested in supporting a different candidate, one over the other. If you're interested, you can Google what your elected officials have done in the past on certain bills that are related to these issues, and you can tell them that when you meet with them or write them a letter like, oh, you've done a really good job supporting this, or oh, you haven't done such a great job supporting this. But when you go out in your community, for example, if you're collecting signatures, don't frame it as, oh, you should vote for this person, or oh, you shouldn't vote for this person. Just stick specifically to bills and issues.
The HPA, we recently had a great meeting with the American Library Association, and we are planning to work with them on the National Legislative Day. And so we're going to have guidance for you guys on how to, contact your legislators, what kind of things would be good to say, kind of give you a little bit more training and support on that, so you feel like more like you know what you're doing. So please keep an eye out for that. It'll be sent out in the Headman's Howl, so just that stuff is coming. We just don't have it quite ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the cool things about contacting your legislators, I know a lot of people have the impression that, oh, they must hear from so many people every day, and, what's my opinion going to do? There have actually been studies that have showed, especially for like your state senators and representatives, if they hear from like 5 people, that's like a flood,
Mm-hmm.
Hearing from that many people on one issue is really rare. And so if your whole chapter can get together and like talk about how much you support libraries and, write them letters or call them, or maybe even like go to their office and meet with them, like hearing from that many people really does have the opportunity to change their opinion. And so definitely don't underestimate, what you can do there. Your chapter can be a really powerful voice for libraries, and libraries are really important to our communities. So please be on the lookout for that, and we'll have more soon.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll throw in is you guys are going to have access to a resource page, and one of the links on there is through the ALA website, and it's super handy. There's basically a map of the US, and you can click on your state, and it shows you exactly what bills are relevant to your state. So then you kind of skip the step of you having to do the research and figure out, exactly what people are looking for. And as Heather said, you can actually meet with your elected officials a lot of times, because when Congress isn't in session, they go back to their state. So if you're living anywhere near the Capitol, it would actually be not too difficult to set up a meeting with them. So it's awesome to actually get to meet with them face to face too. Okay, so another thing that you can do is making connections to social justice issues. One way you could do this is basically by hosting sort of like a mini book club. And you could pick any types of books really, but you could focus maybe on something that you're like an issue that your chapter is interested in picking up, so you have some more knowledge to go with. For example, if you were interested in maybe environmental rights, you could read The Silent Spring, which was one of the first books actually calling for environmental activism back in the 70s. Or if you're not really looking for a specific cause, you could pick a book that's more just about activism and social justice in general, and finding different ways that you could incorporate what you learned from the book into your chapter. And it would just be a great way to learn, but also to maybe pick up more tips and have a discussion with your chapter about where you kind of want to see it going. And there's also a list of a lot of potential ideas that you can look through. So another possible option you could do is pushing for more diversity in books. There's a really great campaign called We Need Diverse Books, and you can look at their website, and basically it's focusing on the importance of diversity in literature, both in the types of characters that we're seeing portrayed as well as the authors who write them. Unfortunately, most books are sort of covering up people of color and LGBT issues. Also, women's authors tend to not get published as frequently. We all know the story with J.K. Rowling, how she went with J.K. instead of her real name because apparently kids wouldn't want to read books by a woman. So just different things like that, trying to make sure we actually have diversity in the books we're reading and we're getting multiple perspectives. One campaign that We Need Diverse Books is doing is their Q card campaign, which is essentially a photo campaign. You can look at their website, but you hold up a piece of paper and you write why you care about diverse books, and then you send it into them, and they're collecting all of them so that they can use them to show that there's actually a big push for diversity in books. Okay, so those are just some of the ideas that we came up with. There are obviously a ton more, and if you guys have any questions about anything we talked about, or maybe some of your own ideas that you're interested in sharing with us, or just general comments, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, so sorry there's somebody mowing outside my house right now, so sorry if it's super loud. I think I'm going to go ahead and turn off the broadcast, and then we can talk in the chat about any questions or suggestions or problems that you guys might want to work through. That sounds good. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Anybody who is watching the recording, we hope this has been helpful to you. And if you need anything else from us about this or have more questions, We will be putting all the links up on our resource page. So if you just go to the forum, our chapter forums, hit the resources drop down, and then it'll be under campaigns and projects. So we'll have all these links accessible to you. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email training@thehpalliance.org, and we will be happy to help you. So thank you so much. And I'm turning off the broadcast now. Thanks, everybody.